Hello. It is so good to have you with me today. Thank you for making time to be here. For those who watch this as a recording, I'm just going to invite you to remember to like the video, share it, drop a comment, subscribe to my channel. All of those things help to make my channel more visible and helps us to get this correct iridology and sclerology information out there. It helps us to start getting rid of some of the myths and misinformation that is so prevalent. So I'm going to encourage you to play with me in my chat box here. If you've got questions or comments, drop them in there and let's get a bit of a conversation going. Do say hello. It's nice to see that Melinda has said hello. Good to see you, Melinda. So good to see you. And again, you should be able to chat with me quite easily there. So hello and welcome. And Marie, oh, hi, Marie. And Caroline, so good to see so many names that I recognize. Wonderful. I feel like we're friends. We just haven't had tea yet, kind of thing. So, and we've got Susan from Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, Susan. Welcome. So good to see some new people with us today as well. When we're doing iridology and sclerology, a lot of people love the idea of iridology and sclerology because of the insight it gives us into our clients. And I absolutely agree. I love it for those reasons as well. I also love iridology and sclerology because it helps me to get that insight really quickly. That helps me to ask the right kinds of questions of my client and to begin with giving them recommendations right away to help them move their health the direction they want it to go in. The kind of work we do, some of us may be able to requisition lab tests, but many of us can't. And so if I want to see lab tests, then I've got to send my client back to their doctor for their doctor to do the lab tests. I don't know what the doctors are like where you're at. Here, it often takes 3 weeks to get in to see your doctor. And then you have to make an appointment at the lab, and that can be another 2 or 3 weeks. And so we have all this time wasting when we could be working, and iridology lets me get that jump start, right? It helps me to see what I want to do with the client even before I have labs to work on. Then we get the labs, and that may refine the direction a little bit. It might give me more insight, but it certainly doesn't, I don't have to wait for those labs to come in. And so that is really exciting. So, when your clients come to see you, they want help now. They don't want help 6 weeks from now. Do you agree with me that they're ready? When they come to see you, they're ready. And so you want to be ready too? Does that make sense? Yeah. Let me know. Marie says, absolutely. Thank you, Marie. Yeah, absolutely. So as we look at this, we need to remember that both iridology and sclerology are assessment tools, right? These are not diagnostic tools. We never diagnose or name a disease from the eyes, from using the sclera or the iris. The iris shows us genetic potentials, so where strengths and weaknesses are inherently, which helps us to understand which organs want to be out of balance and which organs they want to influence. Again, we use the symptoms to help us understand which organs are out of balance. And the sclera gives us another side of the information, and that is the side that shows us where the body is struggling now. And depending on what we're seeing in the sclera, it might be something that has been long-standing. And while we may be able to reverse the impact in the body, we may not be able to reverse it in the sclera. Or it might be something that is just in the early stages. It might even be preclinical. So not a big enough problem to show up on a lab test or to show up as a symptom. But because we see it in the sclera, we can begin working on it. And if it is still a very minor marker in the sclera, we may be able to get it out of the sclera. So that's a huge difference between iridology and sclerology, right? If you've been with me for a few of these, you know that with iridology, we don't take markings out of the eyes. As a matter of fact, the body will often put more markings in based on epigenetics, but we don't take markings out. The sclera, we may be able to do that. We may be able to shift the markings. So we want to use both sclerology and iridology together. And we always want to have, regardless of what we're working on, we want to have at least 2 markers pointing to an area of concern or a type of problem before we actually call it a problem, right? We want to have 2 markers. 3 is even better, you know, that triangulation kind of an aspect. And that's where sclerology can often triangulate with iridology and with the symptoms to give us that depth and breadth of information that we like to have to help us have certainty when we're working with our clients. So today I'm going to give you some real life application that is appropriate for health professionals to help you understand how sclerology works. We'll learn a few really basic markings, and we're going to look at some cases as well, because that's always fun, right? We like to look at cases. That is just fun. When we dovetail iridology for the genetic potentials and sclerology for the where the issues are right now, and combine that with the client's symptoms, again, we get that really clear, well-triangulated idea, that well-triangulated picture, that map of where we need to work and how we need to work. Can we all agree that the symptom is not the problem? Many times the symptom is not the problem. The problem is usually something else. And the symptom is kind of the body's afterthought. Melinda says yes. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Melinda. Absolutely. And Marie is saying very true. Thank you for that, Marie. It is true. The symptom is usually the afterthought. It's the messenger. It's not the actual root of the problem. And so we want to work to get to the root. And that's what we're doing with iridology and sclerology and symptoms and all of that. And that's exactly what I teach in the dynamic iridology course, is how to put all of this together. And of course, that takes hours and hours of studying and teaching and mentoring to help get my students up to speed to where they are really competent and comfortable and doing a fantastic job. So today we're going to look at some basic things again. All right, enough chit chat. Let's get on with this. When we do an iris assessment, we look at the iris, right? We look at the colored part of the eye. We look at the pupil. The pupil gives us information as well, the shape, the size, various things about it give us information. And we look at the sclera. Now we have to understand how all of those three things layer up together with the symptoms and with the family history to actually get somewhere with this. Today we're going to focus on the sclera. So here's something that you already know. The sclera is very dynamic. You know that because if you've ever had an ugly cry at an inopportune time and you went racing to the washroom to splash cool water on your face to calm yourself down, and you took that look in the mirror and you went, oh man, I can't go out there looking like this. Your eyes are puffy and your eyeballs are red and irritated from the tears. But you give it 5 minutes, a little more cool water, you touch up your mascara, and then you look in the mirror again, and the sclera has settled down. Those blood vessels that were those little tiny capillaries that were all super active and very irritated, they've calmed down. The blood vessels in the eye are very responsive, very responsive. And so when we see them, like we see in this image on the screen, they tell us something. And these have been here for a while, and I know that because they're quite thick, but they tell us something of what's going on in the body. In the dynamic iridology assessment system, we learn 12 of the most important and common sclera markers. They're not all blood vessels. There are several other markers that we learn as well. And we learn how to assess them in conjunction with the iris markers. So today we're going to look at 3 really high level sclera markers. And some of these you might know. The first one we're looking at is jaundice. Okay, you might think, well, that's not exciting. No, it's not. What does jaundice tell us? You've got your anatomy and physiology already under your belt. So what does jaundice tell us? When you see someone's eyeballs are yellow instead of white, yeah, liver issues. Well done. It tells us the liver's not conjugating the bilirubin properly, right? And that means the liver is struggling. It could also mean they have a genetic issue called Gilbert's disease or Gilbert syndrome, which is not fatal, but it is an imbalance in the enzymes of the liver, and it messes with how the person conjugates the bilirubin. So when we see jaundice, we need to ask some questions. we need to ask this client, have they noticed the whites of their eyes are yellow? Has the doctor ever spoken with them about that? Has anything ever come back on a blood test? Is there a family history about this? Is there any kind of a diagnosis? Because if it's something as simple as Gilbert's, it's really nothing to worry about, right? You just have to remind them they should be out in the sunshine every day and they should not fast for lengths of time, because typically when people who have Gilbert's fast for too long, they will get jaundice, they'll get very cranky, and their liver will get very mad at them. But maybe they haven't had a diagnosis like that. Maybe the whites of their eyes being yellow is a new thing for them. And this is where you come in, right? This is where you can ask deeper questions about any infections they might have had that might have impacted the liver, any people they've been exposed to who might have been sick, what might have impacted them, anything they've eaten that might have upset the liver. And of course, because this can be something very serious, then you're going to want to suggest they go to their doctor and get some lab work done. Now, if you live in the US, in one of the states where they have the freestanding labs, I would just send them there and get the labs done, right? And if something comes back wonky, then you can say, well, you should take that to your doctor and we'll also work on it holistically, right? But this is one of the reasons why you need your anatomy and physiology before you study iridology, because you need to understand how the body works. So let's look at some other things here. So in this eye, we have this fiber that is running sideways. Can you see this fiber right here? That's kind of got a funny shape to it. Can you see that? Marie is saying yes. Fantastic, Marie. I really appreciate that you're playing with me in my chat box here. Thank you so much. And anyone else who wants to join us, please do. This is in the liver reaction field. So this tells us that inherently genetically, the liver might have an opinion about something that might not be an opinion we want it to have. Right now, we're not going to change this fiber. This just means we are going to watch lab tests. We're going to watch this person's liver. We're going to pay attention to how that liver is performing, because that, along with the yellow in the sclera, that's two markings. We're triangulating two liver markings right there. So the story behind this iris is this. This is an older fellow in his late 60s. He doesn't drink alcohol. He does take supplements, and he's not on any medications. He's worked in a lot of chemically toxic environments. Now, while that will not change his iris, it will change something or some things in his sclera. And in his case, his liver is really not happy. And that could potentially be because he has burdened it with all of these chemical exposures. And in his case, he was working in the oil patch, and he has for many, many years. And that can have a lot of toxic exposure. Now, if his concern was that he had just noticed his eyeballs becoming yellow, we can give some dietary advice and suggest that he get some sunshine. But again, we're going to suggest that he goes to see his doctor, that we want to get those labs. We want to know if this is something serious, because it can be. But until those medical results come back, till those lab tests come back, we need to encourage him to drink plenty of purified water every day, to get some sunshine every day. Now, where I live, our days are getting shorter. We've passed the equinox, which I'm sure many places on the face of the planet have, because that hits everybody at the same time. But our days are getting noticeably shorter. And so that means our sun is lower in the sky. It's further away. It's not as bright. So that means we have to spend more time outside in the middle of the day when the sun is at its brightest, which is not very bright, to get the impact of the sun's rays to help us. We may also want to suggest that he put a little lemon zest in his water, or a little fresh squeezed lemon juice in his water, again, to help that liver along a little bit, help it flush a bit. And we want him to get adequate sleep. The liver works best when we are well rested and not skip meals. I also want you to notice that right here, there is some gray clouding. Can you see this gray cloud right here? If you can, give me gray in the chat box. Maria's saying yes, she can see that. Anybody else see this gray cloud here? Jennifer, Melinda, yes, thank you, Steph, yes. Excellent, Caroline, yes. Okay, so that's not one of the markers that we cover in the dynamic iridology course. It's in a more advanced course, but I'm just going to touch this on this because this is something we would want to chat with him about. There are a lot of very possible causes, but there is one specific cause, and it is more of a cardiovascular issue, right? And so we want to know, has he had a medical lately? Considering his age, being in his 60s, did they do any cardiac stress tests? Did his labs come back okay? And all of his different enzyme levels, particularly the ones for cardiac damage, did they come back okay? So we're going to want to ask him some questions gently, because we never want to scare a client, right? But we want to know what they know. And we want to then empower them with information that will, oh, my water bottle squeaks, that will help them to move forward, correct? All right, okay. This next one is called a meander. A meander. Okay, so this is an excellent example of a meander. We've got some more little ones down here, and this one is becoming a meander. So this blood vessel hasn't always looked like this. I will bet when this gentleman, who is now, when we took this photo, he was 70 years old. I'll bet when he was a little boy, when he was 5 years old, this blood vessel wasn't even showing up. I'll bet it started to show up when he was maybe about 20 or 25, and that as he's gotten older, this blood vessel has gotten thicker and much bolder. Now, again, this is a blue iris. Here is his eye straight on, and he is 70 years old. He is lean and he is fit. You know, so often when we're working with 70-year-olds, they are not lean and they are not fit. He, again, works part-time corporately downtown. He's sort of into extreme semi-retirement, but he also has a small hobby farm, and he does not have big fancy equipment for anything. So when he's, you know, feeding his animals, he's throwing the bales into the back of a pickup truck, going out to where the animals are and throwing these bales off the pickup truck. And so he's doing it all by hand. He has no hired help. It's all him. And I'm absolutely positive that the fresh air, the being out there in the country with the animals and doing all this hard physical labor is probably what is really saving his life in so many ways. Now, what would he like my help with? Well, I met him at a Kiwanis meeting, and he came to see me not because he really wanted help, but because I had sent him and a whole bunch of his Kiwanis buddies an invitation saying, I got a new iridology camera. I need more images for my library, for my teaching library. If you will give me 30 minutes of your time and come in to see me, I will do a mini iris assessment for you, and give you a couple of things that I'm seeing in your eyes and a couple of things that you could maybe work on. So as we were doing his little 30-minute session that, you know, he didn't have any health problems that he was aware of, he just wanted us to look for inherent indicators. Was there anything in here that I thought we should be concerned about? Because again, he was fit, he was lean, he doesn't smoke, he does drink a fair amount of alcohol, but he's out there doing good things physically. So we checked out his pupils, and we were looking for size and for shape, and we can see here that his pupil is not quite round. We're not going to talk about pupils today, but that gives me a certain amount of information. He's got all of these meanders in here. Now, these meanders tell us that there is congestion in the circulation in specific organs. Okay, and the bigger and bolder that blood vessel is, the more long-standing and the more congested this problem is. So his conversation, you know, we asked about his health history, his diet, his lifestyle. And it's good to have those kinds of pieces of information no matter what we're doing, right? This isn't crystal ball stuff we're doing. We're not pulling things out of the air here. We've got to base it in reality. So not having any context means that we can only be very basic, very cookie cutter. But when we have context, when we know the health history, when we know what concerns they have, we can be much more specific in the recommendations we are making. So again, his sclerae show a lot of circulatory system markers with all of these meanders that are in here, lots of that. So we need to wonder, how is his circulatory system doing? So I want you to think this through. If a meander suggests circulatory congestion, what causes circulatory congestion? Could it be constricted blood vessels? Could there be plaque buildup in the blood vessels? And maybe there's other causes as well, right? So there's several things that we would want to ask about. Now, because of his alcohol consumption, I would want to see some labs from his doctors, because his iris suggests there are inherent risks with his cardiovascular, lipids, triglycerides, and blood sugars. So when we look at combine his irides with his sclera, I get a real sense of cardiovascular. There's enough iris markings here. We're not going to dive into those today. So I did suggest, now you got to remember, 70-year-old guy, you know, he's lean, he's fit, doesn't think he's got a problem. So when I suggested, if you haven't had labs done in the last 5 years, I think it's a good idea for you to go to your doctor, have a good physical, get a good lab panel done, and especially have them focus on liver and cardiovascular, right? And I don't know if he did that or not, because like I said, it was a free 30-minute, I'll trade me your photos and your history for my time here. And of course, he didn't come back. So, you know, with this, with what I see here, just, you know, pulling ideas out of the air, I'm going to want to make some changes. I'm going to try to get him to reduce his alcohol and replace it with water or herb tea, right? It's probably not going to go over real well with a 70-year-old guy who's in the Kiwanis and they do a lot of social drinking while they're doing their service projects or while they're preparing their service projects, right? And he's lean and he's fit and he's got no complaints. So that might not fly very well. I'm going to suggest that he bring in more leafy greens into his diet. I might get him to do that a little bit. He might be willing to try that, right? So again, when we look at the problem here is when you look at this fellow being lean and toned, you might not think he could be at risk for cardiovascular or blood sugar issues, but his eyes tell a different story, right? When we look at the iris, when we look at the cornea, when we look at the sclera, it's not that one marker is one problem. It's that when we understand the anatomy and physiology and what each of these markers mean, they tell a story that helps us to understand his risks and how to address them. Now, again, I haven't ever said he's got a disease because I don't diagnose and I don't prescribe. But I do show that I do believe that he had some inherent risks and some earned risks. What we see here are inherent risks. What we see here are earned risks. And I would love to be able to touch base with him again to find out, did he get to a doctor? Did he get those labs done? How's he doing? This is probably 5 or 6 years ago that we did these photos. I would love to know how he's doing now as he's getting closer to being 80 years old. This is a woman who was in her late 30s. She came in to see me wanting help with allergies and depression. Now, both of those have many physiological root causes. Do you agree with me that depression and allergies are not simple, straightforward things? They are very complex. There's a lot of different physiology involved in that. Yes. Yeah. Her eyes are basically lymphatic. So they've got that blue base. And there's a lot of colors on top. Look at what I would consider to be an eye rainbow, right? We don't have all the colors of the rainbow, of course, but we've got pale yellows. We've got sort of dirty orangey yellows. We've got lots of brown and rust in here. In both of her eyes, actually, we've got some really dark browns in here, like really dark browns. And so we've got a full palette of different colors in here. We also have this sitting in her sclera. This little chicken fat blob, is called a pinguecula. And it specifically suggests that she has issues processing her protein and her fat and her calcium, and that it's the liver that's having problems with that. And for this to be sitting here, and she's got one on each eye, on the lateral aspect of each eye, you can see them here and here. And I think she's in the early stages on the medial aspect as well. These tell us then that the liver's been unhappy for a length of time. Now, this woman is very physically fit. She's a personal trainer. She's very lean. She's a competitive Ironman athlete. So she's very aware of her body. The name is pinguecula. 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 Now, what do you know about traditional Chinese medicine and the liver? What do you know about traditional Chinese medicine and the liver? Yeah, the liver stores anger. What else does it store? It's exactly the direction I want to head here, is the emotional side. What else does the liver store? Or does the liver create emotionally? Any ideas? Depression. Depression. Liver is a bit about passion, but it's more about depression. It's more depression and anger and resentment and things like that. Liver also plays key roles in allergies. Are you seeing a theme here with this young lady, this young woman? Yeah, so we've got markers in the sclera that are pointing to liver, right? There's also markings in the irides that are pointing to liver. And we've also even got blood vessels that are literally pointing to the liver area of the iris. And so this tells us, and look at the congestion this is showing. And Marie says, so do the adrenals. Absolutely. The adrenals have to do with depression and allergies as well. Absolutely. It's often a triangle with the pancreas thrown in, actually, for these conditions. And so when we see all of these things literally pointing to the liver, we've got some things that we need to recommend. So, if you've got nutrition training, what would be something nutritionally you would recommend for the liver? Some of you, I think, have herbal training, and I want to see some answers in the chat box here. Lemon water, that's a super simple one, right? Milk thistle, beautifully. I was going to ask for herbal recommendations. Good job, Marie and Susan, for picking up milk thistle. Absolutely. We can go those kinds of directions. Dandelion, bitter herbs like dandelion. Yes, so good. So good. Burdock. Ooh, burdock's one of my favorites. Yes. Very good. Very good. So we can recommend these kinds of things. Now, what would you do for lifestyle? If we were talking about liver and anger and depression, what would you do with lifestyle? Melinda says zeolites, get some cleansing going there. Good suggestion. What would you do for lifestyle to support the liver? Meditation, that can be very helpful. My personal favorite, and I've already mentioned it with other cases tonight, sunshine. Sunshine really helps the liver. Positive activities to stimulate, absolutely. Good one, Marie. So we've got nature. Oh, do some nature bathing. Go for a walk in nature. Yeah. Literally hug a tree. Hug a tree. And I'm not being facetious when I say that. Hug a tree. Grounding. Yeah. Getting out there if you can, if the weather's permitting, in your bare feet. if it's at all possible, and letting your feet touch the earth, particularly in a foresty area. If you can find a place where it's safe to do that, that would be so good. So good. And emotional work. Maybe you've got some training with EFT or flower essences or aromatherapy or counseling or life coach kinds of things that you could offer to a client who's struggling as well, so that you're doing a multifaceted approach as much as you can. Or you do what you can, and you have people that I call the A team, that are people you can refer out to do the things that you don't know how to do. And I would do a little bit of each. I would start with a dietary change, like maybe she needs more leafy greens, because leafy greens are a brilliant support for the liver. I might suggest a herbal formula. We've come up with some brilliant herbal ideas tonight. She's really active. So I might actually try to take it the other way and make sure that she takes enough time to rest and recharge. Too many athletes don't rest enough. It's that rest is such a critical part of the training, the physical training side of things. And then I might add some aromatherapy or a flower essence, and certainly would suggest that she seek professional counseling if she feels it warranted. Again, when we've got the iris, and we've got lots of liver markings in the iris, and we've got lots of things in the sclera pointing to liver, it helps us to understand what the imbalance is, where it's starting from, and how to work with it. But again, it takes training and practice and feedback and mentoring to get to where you can connect all the dots. And that's exactly what I teach in the dynamic iridology assessment system. Next one we're going to do is called an encapsulation. An encapsulation can look like a fish hook, just like this. This would be a partial encapsulation. Or it can be a completely closed loop, and it doesn't need to be this tiny. If you're working on a phone screen, you probably won't be able to see this one very well, but a tiny closed loop like this. What this suggests is that there has been some kind of an infection or a toxin that the body has not been able to completely get rid of. So instead, it's building a wall around it to kind of block it off and keep it out of circulation, or it has built a wall. So you could think of this as being like a cyst, where the body has created that pocket that is holding something that it doesn't want released into the circulatory system or into the body. So when we see something like this, again, we don't know what caused it. We don't know exactly what the infection or what the substance is that is being held in there. And so we can't go and be definitive. And the person may not be able to palpate a lump for this either. It might be very deep inside. It might be very, very tiny and almost not able to be palpable. But it could be as obvious as a swollen gland that will not release, or a cyst, or an abscess. So we do want to ask lots of questions. We want to see if we can find something that the client recognizes as being a potential cause for this. And then we want to make appropriate recommendations. If it's something on the surface, we might suggest doing a herbal poultice to try to draw it out. If it's something deeper, we might suggest some kind of a fasting cleansing protocol to get the body to do the autophagy and digest it and move it out safely. But again, when we see these, we need to ask a lot of questions so that we can understand what's going on. And we must never, ever diagnose. That is not our job unless you are a licensed medical professional who has the legal right to name diseases, and you have other ways of corroborating what you're seeing to be able to define a disease name. Okay, we don't get to do that unless we've got that training. And I would never do that. Even if I had that training, I would never do that based solely on iridology, that's for sure. All right, so when we understand this then, and we understand where it's sitting in the body, like this one is saying something in a kidney region. This one, I'm not even sure which eye we're looking at. I believe this is a right eye. So then this one is suggesting, oh, this is a different person altogether. This could, I'm not sure if this is right or left. I didn't mark it down. I think this one is a right eye. This one, I'm not sure. So we're not sure exactly what this is right here, what part of the body. So Melinda is asking anywhere in the body. Expand your question, Melinda. I'm not sure what that is in reference to. So again, when we see this, because of where it's sitting, it's going to give us an idea. Where it's sitting in the sclera will give us an idea of where it is in the body. And when we understand where it is in the body, then we get a better idea of what it could be and how we want to work with it. But we certainly want more information than that, right? We're always corroborating this to the iris, to the symptoms, to the history, right? But you answered the question. Excellent, excellent. All right. So this is what one of my students said about the dynamic iridology course. She said, what a fantastic course with a fantastic teacher that actually cares about your success. I am so happy that I found her. I'm a registered dental hygienist and have been for 20 years, but I've been studying naturopathic and homeopathic modalities on the side to help my own family. Now I want to open my own business using iridology to help others be healthier. I've already signed up with Judith for her next class so I can brush up on body systems and learn herbology along with it. I should introduce myself, like, excuse me, doing things a little out of order here. My name is Judith Cobb. I am a level 3 IPA certified iridology instructor. Level 3 is the highest level that IPA offers. They are, I think, working on a level 4. I was one of the first 3 level 3 certified instructors, and there are only 10 of us worldwide right now. I've been in the holistic health world since 1979, which is when I started studying. Yeah, I've been at this for a very long time. And I started working with clients in 1981. I've studied iridology under 8 different instructors, 3 different styles. Over the years, I've designed and taught many classes on herbs, on prenatal. I was a certified prenatal educator for a while. I've written and taught courses on herbs for kids, herbs for family use. And of course, now I'm really focusing on the iridology and the herbology and the nutrition that goes with that. In addition to that, I've written the textbooks that go with each of the courses, and they are only available to students who are enrolled in courses. And right now, the only one that's actually currently available is the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System textbook. And that again is only for my students. I'm also a member of the Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals and CANP. I have my holistic nutrition credentials, and I'm also a master herbalist, and so proud professional member of the Alberta Herbalist Association. What I love about these organizations is they require that we do CEUs, right? So not that I would stop learning, but it's really great to have that little push that you've got to get all of this extra studying and training done to stay up to speed. I really like that. Okay, another case here. Here we've got a fellow who's 79 years old. He came into me wanting to lose some weight, and he wanted to lose the weight because he had cardiovascular problems, but he also was having problems walking. He was carrying, and it wasn't like he was like 100 pounds overweight. He was overweight by maybe about 30 or 40 pounds. And he was a short kind of fellow. So it was quite a bit more than he needed to have on him. But it was making it so that his knees were really, really sore and very, very hard for him to be mobile. He had had prostate cancer that was treated with radiation and hormones. And the hormones, of course, when you've had prostate cancer, they put you on estrogen. And as every woman knows, taking extra estrogen is going to make you gain weight, right? And so he came in with a diagnosis also of congestive heart failure, irregular heartbeat, shortness of breath, reflux, and heartburn. He was on 8 different medications, including an anti-anxiety medication to help him stay calm when he couldn't breathe. It just sounds so wrong, so wrong. He also had a hiatal hernia, but his doctor didn't diagnose it. He came in with so many symptoms that just shrieked at me, hiatal hernia, that I did a quick little assessment here. And I couldn't call it that, right? So I said, I think we've got a problem where maybe your stomach is in a funny position and your diaphragm can't move, so you can't breathe well. And that's also giving you reflux. I think that's the chain of command I'm seeing here. And I said, I'd like you to go see this chiropractor who can work on it for you. Right. So I sent him off and got assessed, and I was right. And the chiropractor was able to do a visceral manipulation to fix it, which was great. That solved the reflux problem right then and there. This fellow did not need a proton pump inhibitor. He just needed to have his stomach put back in the right place, right? So as I'm talking with this fellow, I'm getting the image that this fellow is insulin resistant and that he has excess uric acid in his system as well. Okay, so those are impressions I'm getting as we're talking and with what he's telling me. And so he's got the gray patches in his sclera, which is part and parcel of the cardiovascular issues that he's got, the congestive heart failure. Notice that he's also got a pinguecula here, right? And he's got one right here. These are actually the same eye, but you can see it from both of those angles. He's got these markings right here, which are telling us that he is likely insulin resistant. And he's got this marking in his iris, which he has built there all by himself. That again is telling us that his liver doesn't want to process carbohydrates properly. And that can either go into triglycerides or cholesterol or insulin resistance. It can go any of those directions. And we've got a little bit of dirty yellow in here, which tells us uric acid is likely genetically out of balance or is prone to being out of balance. And there's been some recent research that tells us that uric acid is a key player in insulin resistance. So when the uric acid goes up, the person becomes more insulin resistant. And when the uric acid goes up, it triggers cardiovascular issues. He did not have gout, Jennifer, but that would be something that we would be concerned about here. So this fellow brought in his labs. His hemoglobin A1C was 7.7. That's definitely insulin resistant. That's actually diabetic, right? We need it to be under 5.7. His leukocytes were low, so he was still not recovered from all of the cancer therapies. His lymphocytes were very low normal. His hematocrit was very low normal. His erythrocytes were low. His testosterone, of course, was very low because they were squashing that with estrogen. And his triglycerides were elevated. Well, tell me something I didn't guess from his eyes, right? Tell me something I didn't already deduce. So on his initial program, again, we sent him off to work with a chiropractor to work on that hiatal hernia. Oops, I'm not supposed to call it that, but to help him so that he could digest his food without having reflux. There we go. We used some berberine IR with him for his suspected insulin resistance. We used some glucosamine that has some chondroitin and some MSM, things like that for his joints. And did you know glucosamine is brilliant for gut health? And we did a ton of omega-3. We also looked at his diet. Oh my goodness. Now I got to tell you, this guy is a lot of fun to work with. While he's here, we laugh, we poke fun at each other, we tease each other. He is just a riot. One of my favorite clients, because I know that we're going to get somewhere. He's going to do what I suggest that he should do, and he's going to get results, and we're going to have fun getting there, right? So breakfast was a rice cake with marmalade. And he figured that he was going low cal with that, and therefore he should be losing weight. Lunch was typically another rice cake with more marmalade. And supper was a decent supper. It was typically a protein and at least one serving of veg and maybe usually a starch, a rice or a pasta with that. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. So what we did is we got rid of the rice cakes. I had to explain to him that the rice cakes are to his blood sugars as table sugar is. And when you put marmalade on top of that, that's going to be a problem, right? So we got rid of that. We got him instead to do protein, like a couple of eggs and some sauteed vegetables. At first, when I suggested that, if you can imagine an adorable, slightly overweight, kind of shortish, very easygoing English fellow telling you, I'm not eating vegetables for breakfast, in his beautiful English accent. And it's like, okay, well, you know what, just tell you what, make a deal. How about if you just try it for 10 days? And at the end of 10 days, if you really don't like this and you don't want to do it at all, let me know and we'll find another answer. Well, at the end of 10 days, he sent me an email. He said, if anyone had ever said that told me that I would actually love having sauteed vegetables and eggs for breakfast, I would have told them they were crazy. I think I did call you crazy, didn't I? He said, but I do like this. So that was good. And so we chuckled. We got him to do protein and vegetables for lunch. And I suggested, with what I see in his eyes, that it should be a homemade vegetable soup. Now, he and his partner like the kitchen. And so cooking food from scratch is not a problem. So having a nice homemade vegetable soup with good protein in it, not a problem. The evening suggested maybe doing more of a stir fry with lots of veggies and again, protein in that. And I wanted him to walk 30 minutes per day, but I knew his knees hurt. And so I said, the goal is 30 minutes a day, but it doesn't have to be all at once. If you can handle 3 10-minute walks in the day, maybe after each meal, that would be absolute perfection. And it was great because a month later, when he came in to see me, he was walking an hour a day in one stretch. And he said, it hurt at the beginning when I was doing the 10 minutes, but gradually I stretched the 10 minutes out. And now I can walk an hour and it doesn't hurt. He said, and now my belt, the scale doesn't think I've done anything, but my belt is like 3 notches tighter. And I'm wearing pants I haven't worn in like 5 years. So I know things are shifting, right? So we were excited. I also suggested that because he was still having some problems breathing because of the congestive heart failure, that he sleep on an inclined wedge, one of those really nasty hard wedge pillows. And after he did that, he came in and he said, oh, I'm sleeping so well. He said, I don't even mind that it is a rock hard wedge pillow. I can actually breathe when I'm sleeping. And it feels so good to wake up in the morning and feel rested for a change, right? Simple changes. Not every change we suggest is a pill, right? We can look at the eyes and see, yeah, we've got liver things going on in here and we need to be working on that. So let's work with that. Again, he was losing inches. He was sleeping better. We got him to reduce his wine in the evenings. He and his partner really like to have wine with their evening meal. Got him to reduce that. And we had all of his numbers coming along nicely. He was doing so well, so well. And none of this was really way out there kind of stuff, right? Pretty basic. How's this sounding? Is it making sense how I'm connecting the markings, sclera and iris, and then how we come up with the recommendations as we understand the markings compared to the symptoms? Jennifer's saying, yeah, very cool. Maria's saying, amazing. Yeah, this is what I teach in my classes, right? Yes, you learn the markings. You have to learn the markings. Every iridology teacher teaches the markings. Not every iridology teacher teaches you how to think through an iris. How to think, what are the symptoms? What are the markers I see in the sclera, the iris, the pupil that give me information about the symptoms? Now, how do those marks tie together? And what understanding do they give me of the body? Okay, now I've got that understanding. Now, what do I know? What from my other trainings, my nutrition, my herbs, my whatever training I've got, what do I know that I can recommend that will work on that root cause? That's clinical iridology, right? Anybody can teach you markings. Not everybody, as in almost nobody will teach you how to use this. So iridology will help you to do a faster assessment. The beauty of doing a faster assessment, when you're meeting with your client and you're figuring out where they're at and where they want to go and how are you going to get them there, The beauty of doing a faster assessment is you can get it done in your appointment time, and it leaves more time in that appointment for you to create deeper rapport with your clients. The deeper the rapport, the better the client retention will be. This will help you to be more accurate because you're going to understand the pathways of where the problems came from and what is the root. Yes, we want to deliver things. Are there some digestive things going on? Do we actually need to work on digestion and liver? Do we need to work on other things and something else? Like, what do we need to work on to make this more accurate? Better and faster rapport is so important, so important. And it eliminates the need for an intake form. I do not use an intake questionnaire. I have a release form that my clients sign, but I do not torture them with extra paperwork. You know what I found when I used to use a questionnaire is some people either feel like they need to write a novel and give me way more information written down than we need, and it takes way too long to both write it and read it. Or they do what I do. I hate questionnaires. I really do. And they give me really schlocky one-word answers, right? Which doesn't get me anywhere anyways. I would rather speak with my client, and I've never had a client complain about not having to fill out a questionnaire and about me asking them questions based on their symptoms, their eyes, and their history. They actually like that because they feel heard. They know I'm listening. They know I'm digging deeper, and I haven't got a pre-made notion of where we're going. I'm gathering the info, right? Karen Choate said this, Judith, I returned from a regenerative detox course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. They had no support, unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned, like I just said. I feel so absolutely blessed to have been taught by you. I feel totally supported even still as I've graduated. It's actually almost 5 years ago now. This is an old testimonial, but it's just such a good one. I don't think there's anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. And that's the goal here, is to not just teach you markings, but to teach you clinical skills, to have it integrate with what you know. Now, Karen is a CNHP. She specializes in gut health. Kimberly's a Dallas. Actually, I'm going to be seeing most of these people. This is so cool. We've got a level 3 course starting tomorrow, and Kimberly and Karen and one of the other ones we saw earlier are in the course. So it's exciting to have them coming along for another level. Kimberly has a master's degree in radiology, and she also has her own clinic. So she works part-time in a radiology clinic where she is, working with doctors and doing the scans and that kind of stuff. And then she also has her own clinic where she is the practitioner doing Western and Eastern philosophy medicines. So she says, if you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You found it. Judith Cobb is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She is a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. So love that. I get excited when my students come back for advanced classes with me. I do. We create such a rapport. We have such a community with my students and graduates from my course that it's just lovely to have them come back. So the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Health Professionals is the only live online, fully mentored course for anyone who's got a college level anatomy and physiology course under their belt already, who wants to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. So often when we learn a new modality, it becomes an add-on, and suddenly the 1-hour appointment is now an hour and a half, or that 90-minute appointment is now 2 hours because we're incorporating all of these things. Iridology goes the other way. When we incorporate iridology properly, we actually can do more in less time, right? And that's important. So what iridology also helps us do, and what we've talked about tonight, is we're not going to be writing iridology reports outside of our appointment time. In fact, we're not going to write reports, right? We're going to teach our client what they need to know in that moment when we are with them. And we are going to not overwhelm our client with too much information. We're going to give them the information that is pertinent and relevant to where they are now to help them get to the next level. And that means we're going to create a program right there on the spot that is going to take them to the next level, right? And doing that means that the programs are simple and succinct. And it means that our clients don't get overwhelmed, which increases their compliance. The more compliant they are, the more successful they are. And the more successful they are, the longer your relationship with them will be. What will happen when they are very successful is you'll see them for 3 or 4 or 5 appointments. They'll get to feeling really good. Then they're going to disappear. And you're not going to hear from them for several years. But when things start to fall apart again, they're going to come back to you. Right? As we get older, things shift, they adjust. Maybe something in their life changed, whatever. Something happens, they come back. You do another 3 or 4 or 5 appointments. You get them feeling really good again. They disappear for a few more years. I've got clients who've been with me for over 4 decades now. That's exactly how it works. And I'm just so happy when I don't hear from them for a length of time, because it usually means things are going well. It means they've learned well, they're implementing well. When they start coming back, I know they're in trouble. And I'm happy that they're thinking of me as the person who can help them regain their health. So, some people have asked me, can I take dynamic iridology if I'm not a health professional? As long as you've got a college level anatomy and physiology course, and you can come up with proof for that, because you're going to need that for certification, and you've got at least a B or an 80% on it, you're welcome to enroll in the course. And so we need that A and P, because we need to know how the body works, how everything links together, right? So the dynamic iridology course, again, is for anyone who's got that A and P, that college level A and P, especially for health professionals who want to enhance their client work without adding time to their schedule. So if you've got the A and P, if you want to learn iridology and sclerology at a professional level, if you want to learn how the markers play off each other, how they work together, how they work against each other, if you want to learn what questions the eyes want you to ask, if you want to learn how to create programs your clients can be more successful in implementing, and if you want to be mentored for the long term, and I mean years, not just when you're enrolled in the program, and if you want to know what's included in the course so you can make an informed decision, then I invite you to use that URL. I'm just going to put that into the chat box for you as well. Let's use that URL, schedule a time to chat with me. Let's see where you're at and where you want to go. The scheduling a time to chat with me is only for people who've got the college level anatomy and physiology. If you don't have that, just let me know, shoot me an email, message me, get my attention somehow. I will send you a link to the course that I send all of my prospective students to. Let's get the A and P out of the way first, and then let's have a call and let's get you going with the iridology program. The next course is starting on November 28th. And it's 20 classes long plus mentoring after that. And if you would like more of the information about the course itself, you will not be able to enroll through this link, because enrollment only happens when we have a conversation together. But you can certainly find out details about the course, and that is now in your chat box. So feel free to use that. Another case study. This is Michelle. Michelle has been with me for about 25 years now. And these are her irides. Now let's look at her sclerae. These are her sclerae. So like I said, this is her left eye. So this is above. I want you to pay attention to what we've got going on here and here. Then we have her right eye. Oh, look at this. Okay, so let's go back to her her iris photos here. So like I said, we've been together for 25 years. She's been away for a long time and she started coming back. And as we were working, her primary concern was that she had gained some weight. She's in her mid 50s. She wasn't happy about the weight gain. What could we do about it? So we started looking at her eyes, of course, and asking her about her diet. Her diet was absolutely atrocious. Everything I'd ever taught her, she had forgotten and or had ignored, and was absolutely doing the exact opposite of everything that I had taught her years ago when I helped her get healthy to get pregnant with her boys. And so we talked about that. But one of the things that caught my attention is the structure of her eye, plus this told me she was heading towards insulin resistance. And the fact that she was gaining weight told me she was probably already there. Now, I can't tell her that, can I? I can't say you have insulin resistance. So I asked her, is there a family history of any kind of blood sugar issues? And she went, yeah, my dad's got type 2 diabetes. And I said, well, Michelle, with what I'm seeing in your eyes, there's other markers here that suggest that that was the direction she was going. I said, Michelle, with what I'm seeing in your eyes, I really have a strong feeling that that is the direction you are going, and you're probably almost there if you're not already there. Right. And that just threw her for a loop. She knew it was a risk. She didn't realize what she had done to herself with her really poor diet and lifestyle. And so we've been working together on the diet and the lifestyle, and she's working with a counselor to overcome some really deeply entrenched beliefs about food that she's got that have totally messed her up. And we're starting to see, and it's been about a year and a half, we're starting to see some shifts in her food behaviors and in her food thinking. But it's taking a multifaceted approach to get her there, because some of this is a genetic issue. Some of it was learned from parents and was ingrained from her ex-husband, but some of it is also a genetic issue. So there's a lot of different levels we have to work on to get her where she needs to be, where her blood sugars are balanced and she's taken off the weight and she's feeling healthy and resilient again. But we've started. It's just going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of love and maybe a little tough love to get her to really believe that she is worth doing all of this work, because it's a lot of work. And there we have it, folks. Hey, I really love the interaction. Any other questions before we wrap up for the evening? We've kind of gone a little long tonight again. I just get too excited. I love this stuff. I love teaching iridology. There's few things that I would rather do. A nice 3 or 4 night hiking trip in the mountains would be on the list of things I would love to do. But Marie says, thank you for all this amazing information. Can't wait till you are able to come into the class. Melinda says, always great calls. Thank you. Caroline says, very interesting. And Jennifer says, it's all very fascinating and exciting. Susan says, thanks for this great info. Thank you. Thank you so much. Fantastic. So good to have you all with me tonight. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate that. And again, I hope you grabbed those links from the chat box so that if you are interested in learning more about the course, you can go to the link about the course and find out about it. And if you're interested in getting more details about the November 28th course and seeing if you are in the right time and space to enroll in that, use the link that was all about that so that we can have that conversation. I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a great evening. Bye for now.